What's up, everyone? If you've ever tried to scrape a modern website and found that the data just isn't there when you parse the HTML, this tutorial is for you. At the end of this video, you know exactly how to extract data from websites that load content dynamically with JavaScript. We'll look at the problem, understand why it happens, and then solve it using a powerful combination, Selenium and BeautifulSoup. Let's dive in. First, let's understand the problem. Modern websites don't just serve static HTML anymore. They use JavaScript to load content dynamically after the initial page loads. This means data might only appear when you click a button, scroll down, or wait for an AJAX request to complete. Traditional web scraping tools like BeautifulSoup can't handle this because they can't execute JavaScript or interact with the page like a real user would. Let me show you a concrete example. We have a demo page with product information that's hidden behind a button. The data actually exists in the HTML, but it's hidden by CSS with display none. It only becomes visible when a user clicks the Load Data button, which triggers JavaScript to change the CSS class and reveal the content. This pattern is extremely common in real-world websites. Think of infinite scroll, load more buttons, or dynamic filters. So what happens when we try to scrape this with just BeautifulSoup? Well, BeautifulSoup is excellent at parsing HTML, but it has limitations. It cannot execute JavaScript. It cannot click buttons. It cannot wait for dynamic updates. And it definitely cannot interact with the page like a browser does. All it can do is read and parse the static HTML that's initially loaded. So even though the data is technically in the HTML, it remains hidden and completely inaccessible. Enter Selenium. Selenium is a browser automation framework that solves all these problems. Unlike BeautifulSoup, Selenium controls a real browser, Chrome, Firefox, whatever you prefer. It can execute JavaScript, click buttons, fill out forms, scroll pages, and wait for elements to appear. Most importantly, it captures the fully rendered page after all JavaScript has executed and all dynamic content has loaded. The real magic happens when we combine Selenium with BeautifulSoup. Selenium handles the interaction and waits for the content to appear. Then we use BeautifulSoup to parse and extract the data. It's the best of both worlds. First, Selenium opens a browser and loads the web page. Then it interacts with the page, minus clicking buttons, waiting for elements, whatever is needed. It waits for the dynamic content to appear and be fully rendered. Once everything is loaded, Selenium captures the HTML of the rendered page. Finally, we pass that HTML to BeautifulSoup, which parses it and extracts exactly the data we need. Simple, powerful, and it works with almost any website. Let's look at some code. First, here's what scraping without Selenium looks like. We simply open the HTML file and read it as a string. Then we parse it with BeautifulSoup and try to find the data card. The problem? The data card exists in the HTML, but because its CSS class doesn't include visible, it's hidden. We can find the elements, but we can't access the actual data in any meaningful way because it's styled as display none. This is the fundamental limitation. BeautifulSoup can't change the page state. It can only read what's already there. Now let's see the Selenium solution. We start by importing the necessary modules from Selenium, the WebDriver, weights, and expected conditions. Then we create a Chrome WebDriver instance. This actually launches a Chrome browser window. You can pass options to run it headless if you want, but for learning purposes, it's great to see the browser actually working. Then we simply call driver, get with our URL, and the browser navigates to the page. At this point, we have a real browser under our complete control. Here's where it gets interesting. We use WebDriver wait. This is an explicit wait that waits up to 10 seconds for the button to be clickable. Once the button is ready, we click it, just like a user would. Then we wait again, this time for the data card to become visible. The WebDriver wait pauses execution until the element appears on the page. This is crucial. These explicit waits ensure that we don't try to interact with elements before they're ready. It makes our script robust and reliable, even if the page loads slowly. Finally, once the data is visible, we get the page source from Selenium. This is the fully rendered HTML, including all the changes made by JavaScript. We pass this to BeautifulSoup, just like we normally would. Now, when we search for elements by ID, we find them, and they're visible. The data is right there, ready to be extracted. We can grab the product name, price, stock status, and any other data we need. It all works because Selenium made the content visible first. Alright, enough talking about code, let's see this in action. I'm going to run the complete script, and you'll be able to watch the browser automation happen in real time. I'm going to run the script now. There's the Chrome browser opening up. Notice how we can actually see it. This isn't running headless, so we can watch exactly what's happening. And there it is. Selenium just clicked the button, just like a real user would. And here's our output in the terminal. Product name, price, stock status, rating, manufacturer, SKU, all successfully scraped from that dynamically loaded content. Beautiful, clean and simple. So when should you use Selenium? Use it when content loads via JavaScript or Ajax, when you need to interact with the page like clicking buttons or filling forms, when data appears only after user actions, or when you're working with single-page applications. The trade-off is that Selenium is slower and more resource-intensive because it's running an actual browser. But for dynamic content, it's absolutely essential. On the other hand, if the content you need is already in the initial HTML, no JavaScript required, then BeautifulSoup alone is perfectly fine and much faster. Use it for static websites, simple data extraction, or anytime you need maximum speed and efficiency. There's no need to fire up a browser if you don't have to. Let's wrap up with the key takeaways. 1. Dynamic content isn't accessible with static scraping tools alone. 2. Selenium controls a real browser and can interact with pages, wait for content, and execute JavaScript. That's the solution. 3. The best approach combines both. Selenium handles the interaction, BeautifulSoup handles the parsing. And 4. Choose the right tool for your use case. Don't overcomplicate things if you don't need to, but don't limit yourself either. Thanks for watching and happy scraping. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this helpful.